of energy, and wow, we lifted the roof off there, guys. A lot of passion for, there's a lot of stories shared there. And the reason we would start a session like this is because too often we come into the room at these things almost in position, and we meet as positions and not as people. We kind of meet behind what we do, rather than the woman we are, the man we are, the story we have, the things that give us passion in life. It's even why I would tell a personal story, just to sort of shock us out of being over-professional. You can't separate the personal and the professional. There's only one of you. And that's what turns up to work every day. And if it's not okay, if you're not okay, it's not okay. And the first and most meaningful conversation all of us need to have, not just for ourselves, but for the people we work with and for the people who are sitting at home, is that conversation about ourselves. Is your life speaking to you? What crossroads are you at the moment? What is the question for you at the moment? Where's the joy? And how do I stay connected to that? If I'm in a good space, how do I protect it? If I floated away like I had, how do I make sure I take some good steps back in that direction? Because how you are matters to what you do. And the casualties of high performance could be sitting on the sofa at home. And that's not a great place to ask people to pay for things that give us life and passion. High-performing people have a deep ethic, in many ways a learning ethic, and I'm going to run through a few just simple slides. By the way, I'll give Dave a copy of the slides, so I'd really rather you had time to think and talk and consider things here, rather than that you had to feel you had to capture it. Life's full of questions and idiots are full of answers. So I'm not going to be throwing answers at you all night. I'm going to ask you lots of questions, and the right question, if it's the right question for you, will land with you. Nobody hasn't figured out. There isn't a way to do this. There's just us trying to figure it out. And so I'm suspicious of the snake oil of answers. These are hard times to make sense of. Look at the American election. Brexit. Look at Brexit in England. These are hard times to make sense of. And you're coaching and leading, often young people, in hard times to make sense of. So the task is going to be tough for now. High-performing learners are curious. They've got a basic stance of, I'm interested in what's happening. I'm interested. I don't know, but I'm curious, and I'm open to being surprised. They notice things differently to other people. Coaching, as I've come to understand it, and I do executive coaching, and even in executive coaching, one of the things I understand now about coaches, about many of you, is coaches are great observers, and they notice the important things. They don't necessarily, they probably notice lots of stuff that I can let it go, but they notice, when I watch great coaches work, they come in on one or two things, and all of a sudden you think, what? How did he see that? How did she, like, some of the rowing coaches I work with tell me they know whether the people are carrying their boat down to the water, whether they're going to row well. They can tell from them walking down to the water if they're going to row well. And I work with Jeremy, who's Eliza's coach, and he was showing us clips of Eliza's jumps leading up to the Olympics, and he could stop those clips and say, did you notice? So you go, no, it's a girl with a pole to me. Watch it again, did you notice? No, still a girl with a pole to me. But he can see shifts, she can see things in her body language, she can see things in the way she's approaching the jump that actually explain what's about to happen. So that noticing is a really highly developed skill. And they're happy to be vulnerable. They're happy to be wrong. I'd rather be wrong in learning than right and close-minded. So risk reaching out, like you just did in that little short segment with each other. Just tell someone a story, show a little bit of who you are. This is a room full of allies. This is a room full of people we can learn together with. And it's important that we use the room. And we're not looking for massive gains, we're looking for marginal gains. I'm not a great believer in you can't climb Mount Everest from here to here. You can only climb it step by step. And so marginal gains get you where you need to go. So looking for the right next step is a logical thing to do, rather than looking for this great leap that's going to make us all achieve our potential. And another thing I want to say, I know you know, that there isn't recipe for a lot of this stuff. Complex stuff doesn't have recipes attached to it. It's approaches, useful approaches is what we're going to look for. Useful approaches, not a step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's how it happens every time. Because context is complex. Context is complex. How could you take a recipe into the complexity of your team? The question they ask you, the way they're feeling, what you're feeling, the opposition. No plan survives contact with the enemy. And the enemy is all around us. So we're looking for approaches of merit rather than recipes. And we're suspicious of certainty. Anybody who tells you this is the only thing you should do in this situation, thank you very much. Certainty, where did that come from? So what I'm asking you to do tonight is this. I'm asking you to, I'll give you some stuff. You have some practice. I'm asking you to do that. To find the stone that bridges the workshop and the workplace. Find, and that'll be different for different people in the room. Find the bit that you can use. Find the marginal gain for you. Be curious about the thing that you're curious about. And don't worry about it. 90% of what I say will just go straight through into the Wikipedia. Because you'll know it already, or you don't need it, or it's not the right time for you. But there'll be something there, that will help you to step out marginally different to the way you stepped into the room. Our sort of the themes of the thread, I've started making the case for skillful talk, for more skillful talk. I'm going to use a couple of frameworks to help you just to get your thinking right around it. We're always talking today about stance and getting the right stance in front of people. And then we're going to do the practical work around delivering a difficult message. How to handle an ambush in a conversation. When somebody ambushes you, gives you something you weren't expecting. And I don't think we'll get in the time we've got to reset conversation, but one of your handouts, the handout on difficult conversations, is about a different type of conversation. If you're facing one of them, I'll explain it before we finish. It'll actually give you a pretty good approach to handling that reset. These are conversations where you need to deliver a message that the other person will find unwelcome. These are situations when the room shuts down and you feel really caught out. And these reset are when you're trying to re-establish a relationship with somebody, but you're not that clear why it's got. It's not like I'm delivering the message, I'm actually trying to work out what's going on with us. So there are different types of conversations. So that's sort of the map for what we're going. Any queries, questions, comments that anybody wants to throw at me? Try to make it your session, guys. Lead me. Don't let me lead you like all the time. I've got the framing here, but I'm happy to follow anything that's useful to you. So take me wherever you need me to go. So feel free to throw up your hand and ask a question. Can't promise an answer, but I'll probably give you another question back at least. So a couple of frameworks that Dave and I and his group have used, and I think they're relevant to what we're doing tonight. The first one is called, and it looks technical, but it's not, called the ladder of inference. Some of you may have come across it before. It came from Chris Argyris, who's a great thinker in Harvard, so in that part of the States, about organizations and about organizational change. And what Argyris says is that, in any given situation, this is a situation right now, we're all in a situation right now. In any situation, there are literally, somebody said it's about 11 million pieces of information coming at us in the moment right now. If you actually, I don't know who's going to bother counting all these, but sensory information through your chair, possible things you could look at, what you could be thinking about, in your head. There's about 11 million pieces of information, data, little pieces of data firing at you at any moment. And to handle that, human beings have to make a selection. The only way you can handle that, because you couldn't pay attention to that, we're constantly making selections of data to pay attention to. Right? So that's happening to us all right now. I'm doing it, you're doing it, we're all doing it. The moment we make a selection of something to pay attention to, we internally, without saying anything, we lay some personal meaning across that. Things we've known from the past. We lay some personal meaning across it. Oh, this reminds me of. oh, I hate this, you know, the personal meaning comes in. Some of our assumptions start to play out. Assumptions about the world, assumptions about other people, assumptions about the situation. And we start coming to conclusions and actually forming beliefs about the situation in that moment. And once we've got a belief formed, we take action in response to that belief. Now this happens in microseconds. All these rungs we go up like a rat up a drain pipe. Situation, data selection, and then these stories we tell ourselves before we take action happen all the time. Let's put it in a really practical example for you so you can see this in like a real life example rather than as a concept. So I'm walking into work tomorrow. I'm walking down a corridor. That's the situation. Like a video camera or an audio could watch that happening. Right? Tom, you could film it. Right? I'm walking towards a woman, one of my colleagues, and I'm about to say, hey, how you going? Good morning. And she just looks down at the ground, walks into her office, completely flips me off as if I wasn't on the planet, and just closes the door and goes quietly into her room. I've noticed, out of the 11 million things I could notice, she looked down at the ground, she didn't say hello, she closed the door. It's like I wasn't on the planet. What happens was then? That's freaking rude. Like seriously? We have respect as our value. It's on the wall. It's on the wall. And that is anti-value. That is the opposite of our values happening right now. She did our opposite of our values on legs. And she meant it. And she meant it. She meant it. You know, what a cow. I'm going up a very vindictive ladder here. I'm not describing one that I normally go up. She shouldn't really be here. She doesn't deserve to be, but I don't know how you let her in there. Our employment procedures are crap around here. We let people like that through the door to walk around in the opposite direction to our values. She's subversive. And at morning tea, I got more mates. I'm going to gather the troops. And I'm going to make it hard for her to get into the tube. There's not going to be any carrot cake left for her. I'm taking 2 pieces. I'm taking 2 pieces. Right. For the sake of effect. You see, that was true, and even this was true. She did walk into the room. But everything else is a series of stories I've told myself, but it has led to a real life action. And it hasn't been a very helpful one. Because I could have walked in the corridor, could have been about to say hello to her, she could have walked into her office, and I could have gone up a totally different ladder about her. I could have thought, she must be okay. Yeah, she's my mate. That's not like her. That conversation she was going to have with her husband last night must have gone really pear-shaped. I'll give her my carrot cake in morning tea. You know, I'll make sure I sit with her. Or I'll go in now and knock on the door. Like, exact same data, totally different action, all because of these conversations that we're having all the time in our heads about other people. And this causes chaos around us because we haven't got the capacity to have the critical conversations to check how we're making meanings of things by sitting down with people and saying, hey, I don't think that meeting was really helpful. Don't know how you saw it, but here's how I saw it. And having a genuine conversation about, because, you know, wherever the difference is coming in, it could be just you, or it could be that they have a different, it could be all sorts of things. But unless you're prepared to talk to each other, people who don't talk to each other well can't work with each other well. Full stop. We end up in storyline. And we go to our friends and tell stories about other people, and they'll tell stories about other people, and the whole thing ends up like a freaking, you know, like a library of stories, none of which we know is true or maybe not true. We have no idea. Here's the killer point that Ardress came up with. The moment you have a belief about someone or a situation, that belief determines what you decide to pay attention to. See, if I think she doesn't like me, the 999 things that she does that are pretty normal, that might even be nice, what does she want? She wants to get at the cake before me. And, you know, what does she ask for? She wants to ask me to do something. But that one thing she does, that look she gave me at a meeting, or that time she asked me that question, because we have a tendency to confirm that the world is the way we see it. we all tend to confirm that the world is the way we see it. Right? It's just a story until you test it. And it's critical conversation and skillful listening that help us to test the stories. And without that, none of us have a chance to work together properly, without ending up in a fantasy land, guessing at each other's intentions, and finding small little campfires where we can be with our friends, but never being at the big campfire when we can be with the whole team. And it happens in every team I've ever worked in. And it's actionable. The leader is a more skillful talker. If they call things out more respectfully, a lot more of that, a lot more of those stories get tested, which is the key reason we look at critical conversation. It's not a technical issue, it's actually about the culture of your group. It can be technical then, but that's the why. Just another quick buzz, guys, and I'll look at one more thing and then we go on a break. Just another quick buzz among yourselves, or you can throw a question to me or a reflection to me. I mean, you're all experienced people, you've probably seen this in action. You've probably been up that ladder yourself many times, I have. And the question is, you know, if we want to make things better, we've got to be able to interrogate the story. Does that make intuitive sense to you, or is there anything that anybody wants to ask?
I was thinking about the future with technology.
Beg your pardon?
So
yeah.
So now we can communicate through this.
Yep.
And then,
yep.
you know, the ability to hold conversations.
Yep.
And now we're talking about, let's have education at home on smart devices.
Yep.
So you don't have to go to school.
Yep. Smart devices and dumb kids. That's the way we produce it. We keep doing that because. You know, and don't get me wrong, I'm pro, like, this is technology, I use technology all the time. As long as I'm using technology and it's not using me, we've got a chance. But there is a tipping point there. There's a tipping point there. And the biggest issue with technology is that it's fakeable. If I send you a message, I can send you a friendly message and hate you. I can send you a clumsy message, and you'll interpret as clumsy. It's just been that I've used the wrong word. Because technology is robbed of this. You ever see anybody on the phone? We're still using body language. Well, you know, we're doing this. They can't see you. Unless you're FaceTiming. They can't see you, but we're still, because we're, as human beings, we communicate, every communication's got the two conversations, typically it's got the spoken and it's got the physical. And when you rob conversation of the physical, the way we make sense of other people, a lot of that gets robbed. And so emails are a disaster in terms of trying to gauge feeling, and having a difficult conversation over an email is a disaster. If a lot of business people tell you if it's longer than 4 lines, it's probably a conversation. Even the phone is better than the email because the phone has at least your voice, and that carries meaning as well. And I think in terms of education, I come out of the education sector, I think the future of schools won't be in learning content, because there's content in your pocket now. Nothing I could say you couldn't check right now. So content is completely democratized now. The future of schools will actually be in helping people to learn what it means to be with other people. How do you collaborate? How do you actually tell each other stories? How do you share? How do you take turns? And I think great schools are starting to wake up to the fact that actually our project, it'll be possible to digitize the learning. So like, you know, if your child be able to come to school, they can already do it in some places, and actually have a program designed that perfectly meets their needs. Just a binary program where you go this way, you go that way, you keep answering yes, no's, you know, and you move into a level that's right for you. So, and it'll be much more attuned to your child than the teacher could be, because the teacher has 30 of them. But what schools will still do is be places where people come together. What does it mean to meet people who've got a different view of the world, who've got different values to you? How do you negotiate that? I think schools will be social spaces in the future, not learning spaces. Except that learning is social anyway. They say in Australia, I don't know if it's the same in New Zealand, 47% of the jobs that we currently have are disappearing in the next 10 years. So 47% of jobs, anything that can be turned into a binary, into a routine proposition, into an algorithm, will be digitized, all driving, for example. And the jobs that they say will last longer, so the ones that have that messy, human, hard to deal with, interactive sort of space, the service sort of stuff, that's the stuff that will go last.